Look, we got a great show for you today. A lot of it centered around what we all watched last night. And the story around Damar Hamlin, whose family's put out a statement thanking everybody for the thoughts and the prayers and the well wishes. But, we've seen a lot of gruesome injuries. We've seen guys get paralyzed. We've seen guys have compound fractures of their legs. We've seen guys take hits to the head that renders them unconscious for a period of time. We saw the obviously Tua injury on the same field as last night. But none of us that I'm aware of, unless you want to go all the way back to Hank Gathers in a tournament game probably before you were born, or you're going to go back to 1971 when it happened on an NFL field way, way, way back in the day. We've never seen what we saw last night, which is why it's so jarring, which is why it is now the number one story, not just sports story, but news story across this country. And there's not a lot to say about it other than you hope the kid pulls through. And right now, I guess there's some question mark as to whether or not that's going to happen. Good afternoon, Evan. How are you today?
My apologies. It made a football game so irrelevant so quick.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thought I had watching it because this was a Monday night football game we're all excited about.
Biggest game in a long time.
Fantasy championships on the line. And I was lucky enough last night. I was in a suite at the net game. So I was watching the net game, and we had the game on. And we all turn around and see everybody surrounding him. And all of us are looking at each other like, what the heck happened?
Sure.
And when you realize the enormity of it and how scary it was, especially watching this kid collapse like that, it very, very quickly was a reminder. Sometimes we need the reminder that while we all love sports and we all take it seriously, boy, did it mean nothing.
No. I mean, and they're not going to play the game, nor should they. You can figure out ultimately if that game means something, for the postseason and seeding and all that kind of stuff. The NFL will deal with it, but
there's always
it's about the kids' health.
Craig, scheduling stuff, you can always figure out. Right?
Yes,
there's a million different ways you can do that, and it will be figured out at some point. But it was horrifying. And I think sometimes we take it for granted. I love the NFL. You love the NFL.
Yeah.
It is such a violent sport. You know what I was thinking about? Because last night as I'm watching this, there's a lot of emotions that go all through our minds. And you know what I was thinking about, believe it or not? I was thinking of you. And here's the reason I was thinking of you.
Yeah.
You have a kid who plays football every Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every Friday night. Now, my kids are too young, and maybe they won't be athletically gifted from my DNAs to ever make this decision. But I'm watching that play saying, oh, my, I would have my heart down my throat watching my kid play that sport every single week. Now, does that make me a hypocrite because I love the sport
no,
and I watch
real.
it all the time? But I thought of you as a father who watches your kid play football every week.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that. I as I was watching it last night, to be fair, I was just about to go to bed. And I was about to turn off the TV when it happened, so obviously I stood up for a little while longer. It's, I kept thinking about his mom. Because his mom, I think his dad maybe also, but I know for a fact his mom was in the stands.
Right.
You know how many times I've done that?
Of course.
And I was just trying to imagine, what his mom was going through as somebody obviously from the Bills came and got her and brought her down to the field because she rode in the ambulance with him, to the hospital. And now you just cross your fingers. If you believe in prayer, you say one, and football becomes far less important. And you're talking about a significant game, and who cares?
Of course.
Like, who cares?
It didn't matter.
Right.
It still doesn't matter. We all understand playoff implications. Those are the things you figure out at a later date, and they'll be figured out. It'll happen. But watching that last night was horrifying. It was scary. It was sobering. And it was a reminder that as much as we love this sport, and I love it, we all love it, boy, it's a reminder how violent it can be, how scary it can be.
And I'm not even sure if it's a direct result of the violence of the sport, like a lot of hits we see, like concussions we see, like elbows to the head of Daniel Jones that we saw this past weekend. It was a kind of, ho-hum, rudimentary play.
Right.
Like it didn't stand out.
But sometimes
in any way,
sometimes those are the worst, though, Like, obviously, you see these massive hits in the NFL on a weekly basis, and a lot of times guys just get up right away. No injury, no harm, no foul. And then sometimes it's the hit that maybe doesn't jump out at you.
Like a lot of people are comparing it to Dale Earnhardt, who sadly passed away, that car accident was nothing compared to a lot of the crazy ones, you see in NASCAR. But, I don't know. You're watching it and recognizing that he damn near died on the field.
Yeah.
And that's real, it's not hyperbole. He almost died on the field. Also makes me grateful that you've got those medical experts on both sidelines, the independent doctors, and they all ran to this kid and literally saved his life. I was trying to figure out early on why they all crying. And then it dawned on me the reason that they're so emotional in the moment is if you've ever seen someone receive CPR, it is a violent thing.
Right.
It is not pretty to watch somebody in cardiac arrest being worked on. And it's very disturbing to watch that because essentially they have a lifeless body and there's another human being usually sitting on top of them, compressing their chest with great force to keep the heart going. And the men and women that ran onto that field yesterday, and again, I'm not overstating it, save this kid's life.
No doubt.
And now you cross your fingers that, they indeed did save his life and that, he got enough oxygen to his brain and all the other things that come along with, his recovery now. But we went from, I know you were watching a game, your basketball team was winning. I know that made you happy. 12 in a row, big story, obviously. You had Donovan Mitchell dropped 71 points in a game. First guy since 2006, Kobe Bryant, to have 70-plus when he had 81, I think it was.
Yep, in Toronto. Yeah.
Right? And, you had all these really amazing, legitimate on the court, on the field type of stuff that was going on, and none of it matters.
No, none of it mattered.
None of it. And I don't know, in our lifetime, we've seen bad injuries, we've seen major moments, obviously, negative moments. I don't recall anything specifically like this.
So there was something, and it's a different time, but back in 1997, the Jets were playing their last game of the year against the Lions. It was a big game for the postseason. And one of the Lion linebackers collapsed on the field.
The Dennis Byrd game?
It was not Dennis Byrd. I was actually too young for that one.
Okay.
So I've heard about it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
But no, this was a Lion linebacker. He's 23 years old, took a massive hit, collapsed on the field. They delayed the game for like 20 minutes. But here's the difference. There's no social media.
Okay.
There's no Twitter.
Yeah.
So I remember as a young kid, obviously scared for the guy. Like, what the heck's going on? And I don't recall specifically what they were saying on TV. I don't think they were giving a lot of updates.
Probably a lot of commercials.
But the game was delayed for about 20, 25 minutes. They got him off the field. Unfortunately, the kid never played another NFL game. He was 23 years old at the time.
He walked again?
I think so, yeah. I think he's healthy now. But I remember that incident and being like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
That is crazy. But we had less information then. Right now, I remember last night even, weren't you on Twitter, and most of us on Twitter refreshing, trying to find out what's happening?
Yeah, and I thought ESPN did a very good job with the reporters out there and Joe Buck and Aikman trying to at least tell you what they knew and what they saw. And it's weird. And I wish, and this is going to be a silly thing, I guess, to say, but there's still that weird segment of the population that just can't help themselves but being negative. You cannot criticize the NFL for what took place last night or the fact that it took an hour for them to postpone the game. What did you want them to do? And at the end of the day, they postponed the game.
Right.
Didn't matter if they did it 30 minutes later, 45 minutes later, an hour later. If you're looking for something to be critical of, turn off the TV, go read a book. Because there was a certain segment of the population that was not concerned with this kid's well-being, but was only concerned with who do I blame for my night being ruined? Why didn't the NFL come out and say, this is an unprecedented event in the modern era of football, and ultimately the NFL, got it right, and their medical staff saved the kid's life.
Should the NFL have played last night's game?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I agree with you. And I think most people listening would say, you know what? League made the right decision. Ultimately, they made the right decision.
Yeah.
So who cares
Right.
how it got
But
there?
you read all the same stuff, and I'm sitting there going, come on.
Because there's a perception, because ESPN told us something last night. We're
Yeah,
only
Joe
trusting
Buck did
what we
say
hear.
it.
They're giving the teams and players a 5-minute warm-up
Now, to
period.
be fair, Troy Vincent, who played and is that guy with the NFL, said, I cannot be any more straight about this. That conversation never took place.
ESPN says that's not true.
Okay.
ESPN already came out and said we were in constant communication with the league and game officials. We reported what we were told. There was a 5-minute warm-up period.
Well,
now, does it really, Craig, does it matter in the end?
It does not matter.
Look.
The Buffalo Bills were never walking back on that field.
Look, was their intent, the league, to try to restart the game? Probably. It probably
Listen,
was.
I'm sure they discussed it with the teams.
I'm sure that 5-minute warm-up period was happening. And the Buffalo Bills said, that's not happening.
Yeah.
We are not playing this football game. So was it the Bills and the Bengals who ultimately got this game postponed? Sure. But at the end of the day, the right decision was made. So if the right decision was made, who cares how we got there, right?
Yeah.
To your point.
I'm with you. So, all right, so here's where we're at now. They're not going to play the game this week. As of right now, the league is not making any changes at all to the weekend schedule coming up. And then depending on whether or not there's a need, I suppose, for home field advantage or ultimate seeding, they will then make a decision, I guess, Sunday night after the final game is played, or I guess they'll do it after the last AFC game is played.
Right, to
which
see
is not the
if-
Sunday night game. That's the Green Bay-Detroit game, to see if, hey, do we need to get the Bill-Bengal game in so that we can be respectful of one of those two teams still alive
Right.
for the number one seed?
That's how you handle it.
And I
mean,
think that's fine.
if they need the game to determine the number one seed, then the odds are they're going to play that game.
Yes.
I think they are. The game is not going to be played to determine who makes the playoffs because
and they're
both
all
are
in.
in.
Right.
But I do think that if it's ultimately for the one seed, which means the Bills win on Sunday, the Chiefs win on Sunday, and the game's necessary, I think they'll play it. But I think right now the NFL's doing the right thing, which is let's just
Kick the can down the curb a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's get week 18 in. It's going to be a very emotional week for everybody.
No doubt.
To my knowledge, the NFL canceled all media availability
Right.
across the league so that the players would not have to spend all day talking about this, because obviously there's that fraternity of players who are going to be very emotional about it.
they're also worried about their guy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They're
And
worried
what is
about
there to
their-
say, obviously?
Right. I mean, you all heard the story last night about Stephon Diggs Ubering his way to the hospital just to check up on him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is real life. These are basically, it's a family member. So you can understand the concern right now, not just in the Buffalo Bills locker room, but at the NFL community. Because I think every athlete looks at this and says, could have been me.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. There's something happened last night that was organic and I just think awesome between the two teams. And that was as the paramedics are working on reviving or, saving the life of the player, that the other players from both teams
Right.
made what amounted to a human shield
Yeah.
around him so that he'd have some dignity.
Yep.
Because, like I said, and I've unfortunately seen it, the aggressive CPR, et cetera, it's not pretty,
No.
and you're unconscious during it. And the fact that they made that human shield so that, number one, the Monday Night Football cameras couldn't catch it, which in theory they probably could have, and they did the right thing.
They're not going to show that, nor should
And
they.
number two, people with their cell phones doing their thing.
Right.
I just thought that was this kind of unspoken, amazing, organic moment between the guys.
Well, sometimes during moments like this, we see the bad of humanity, but we see mostly the good of humanity. How about the fact that NFL fans and just humans around the country started donating to Damar Hamlin's charity in mass? Like, he had a charity, I think it's a Toys for Kids charity.
Back in 2020, he started it.
And it raised over $4 million in less than 24 hours.
And here's what's amazing about it. When he set up the original GoFund page for this charity to buy toys for kids,
Right.
the goal was $2,500.
Right.
That's what he wanted. He didn't have any money. He's like, 6th-round draft pick. I got a shot to do something in my community. $2,500.
Yeah.
They raised $4 million yesterday.
And it makes sense because I think humans watching this say, we feel so bad for him. We feel so bad for his family, but what can we do? right? You say, what can I do other than pray for the kid? What can I do? And that's like a logical thing that you can do. And you saw so many people in less than 24 hours say, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
And that was the something.
Speaking of which, you guys all know I'm very close with the guys at Fanatics. The Fanatics team just announced that there's people rushing the site to buy his jersey. They are donating 100% of all the proceeds to that charity as well.
That's great.
So everybody's pitching in.
So for anybody who tweeted something stupid last night, don't focus on them. Focus on the mostly good that exists in this world.
And for those of you that are on this ridiculous, the vaccine is responsible for this nonsense, can you just slow your roll for a day and let this man recover? Can you not make it about you? Can you not make it about your political stance on something? I mean, Jesus. Like, there's a 24-year-old kid, who died on the field last night, was brought back to life, and knock on wood is going to survive and live a normal, healthy life even without playing football ever again. And you guys decided to politicize it? I mean, so it's just disgusting. And, that's the minority of people.
It's the minority.
But you do see it. You do read it.
It's the 5%. I really believe 95% of people last night just cared for the kid. And they weren't pushing anything crazy.
No, this is about this kid. It's not about your fantasy team. It's not about your wager on the game last night. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about a 24-year-old kid that had a heart attack on the field last night. That's what this is about. And the life-saving measures it took to bring him back to life. Like, if they don't react like that, if they're not on it immediately, he's dead. This isn't a torn ACL, which sucks. This is not, a concussion, which sucks.
Right.
Or a more serious injury, which is life-changing.
Sure.
Which I'm very respectful of. This is life and death. And I mean, that's it, in a game. And if they never get this game in, so be it. If they do need to get the game in, you'll use that extra week. Yeah, it changes the whole notion of the bye week and how many weeks the number one. So what? So what? On the second Sunday in February, we will crown a Super Bowl champion regardless. And if this story from last night plays a role in the outcome of that, so be it. That may be something you just have to deal with and live with. And that's it. 877-337-6666. It's Carton and Roberts on the Fan. We got you all the way to 6:30. We'll take you. Listen, you're watching the game last night. Anything you want to say about it, your experience watching it last night, your thoughts on any aspect of it, bring it. We look forward to talking to you. We'll get to all the other stuff throughout the afternoon as well, including the very interesting decision by the Yankees to bring in a general manager when they already had a general manager. Interesting. And we'll do that right after this.